And now to the curious case of Channel 7 and the Premier of South Australia. Last November, 7's Sunday night programme ran a juicy interview with Michelle Chanteloy, a woman who claimed to have had a long and steamy affair with Premier Mike Rann.
You know, having me on his desk, Parliament House desk, and...
In his office?
In his office.
You had sex with the Premier of the State on his desk in his office in Parliament House?
Yes.
Mike Rann had refused to be interviewed by Sunday night, but after that broadcast, his denials were unambiguous.
I have not had sex with her. The idea that I would have sex between meetings in my office in Parliament House while Parliament is sitting is so patently ridiculous.
And he sued Channel 7 for defamation. Now, there's a long tradition in Australia that the media do not report on the private lives of politicians unless their private actions affect their public duties. On the night, reporter Mark Riley argued that it wasn't the affair itself, but the Premier's earlier denials that justified running the story.
So why is this politically important? Well, I've been covering politics for about 20 years, and in my experience, the way powerful political leaders treat the little people in their private lives says a heck of a lot more about their true character than anything they say or do in their public lives. And here in South Australia, this affair is having a profound effect. And now, the longest serving and most popular Premier in Australia faces dangerous questions about whether he has lied to the people.
Well, the Premier's defamation action has now been settled. And last night, 7's Sunday Night ran a curious statement. It said it acknowledged Mr Rann's response to its story.
And in particular his denial that he engaged in sexual intercourse with Ms Chanteloy.
Ms Chanteloy has been all over the South Australian media today, noting that 7 had not retracted the claims she had made.
It hasn't been addressed, the relationship between Rann and I. That's not what they're apologising for. There's no apology in that area.
Well, maybe not. But 7's statement did go on to say this.
7 also acknowledges that neither the Premier's friendship with Ms Chanteloy nor the subject matter of the story have any bearing on the Premier's role of performance as Premier.
But if the story didn't have any bearing on the Premier's role or performance, what was the justification for publishing it in the first place? No doubt 7 would argue that Mr Rann's performance and his credibility are two different things. That's arguable. What isn't is that 7 has been able to publish a juicy political sex story at minimal cost. Stand by for more of the same from now on. Now, on a different topic, here's Joe O'Brien on ABC2's News Breakfast.
Now we'll cross back to Associate Professor John Dixon, who's at Sydney Airport. He's done a bit of research into the appropriateness of lap-band surgery for children. John Dixon, good morning. Can you first of all just give us an idea of what your study found?
What Dr Dixon's study found was all over the media last week. In newspapers.
The authors of a major new Australian study into childhood obesity are advocating a big increase in the number of juvenile gastric banding operations to tackle the growing prevalence of morbidly overweight kids.
And on radio.
New Australian research suggests lap-band type surgery is the most effective approach for severely obese teenagers.
Researchers from Monash University found teenagers who had the surgery lost 66% more weight than those who were placed on diets.
Much of the coverage appears to have been based solely on this media release.
World-first research reveals benefits of gastric banding for severely obese teens.
Which made clear that the lead institution behind the research is the
Monash University Centre for Obesity Research and Education.
Or CORE for short. But you'd have to look beyond the media release to CORE's most recent annual report to find this.
Allergan Health is CORE's major funding source. Allergan manufactures the lap band,
which dominates the market for these devices in Australia. So what role, you may wonder, did Allergan play in funding the study into 50 obese teenagers? The question obviously hadn't even occurred to ABC News Breakfast.
And this was totally independent study done by the university. It wasn't sponsored by any group in particular?
Yes, in fact this study was done by Monash University in conjunction with the Children's Hospital in Melbourne, and it was funded by the NHMRC, the National Medical and Research Council, so it's a nationally government-funded study.
Yeah, and a totally independent study. So can kids
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Perfectly true. Not only was the study funded by the NH and MRC, but its results were written up in the prestigious peer-reviewed Journal of the American Medical Association, commonly known as JAMA.
Laparoscopic adjustable gastric banding in severely obese adolescents.
But if you go to the small print at the end of the JAMA article, you discover that
Dr. Dixon reported that he has a consultancy with Allergan and is a member of the Allergan Diabetes Advisory Board.
And that
the laparoscopic adjustable gastric bands used in the study were provided by the manufacturer, Allergan.
And that 8 of the study's authors are affiliated with CORE, which
receives an unrestricted research support grant from Allergan.
Mind you, the footnote adds,
NHMRC and Allergan had no role in the design or conduct of the study.
And indeed were not suggesting that the research was anything but independent and thorough. But the fact remains that neither the media release nor the study's authors said much about any adverse effects of the surgery.
It's an extraordinarily safe procedure, it's a gentle procedure, it's a reversible procedure, a controllable procedure.
The journos had to read the study itself to discover, as the ABC Online's team did, that
1/3 of those who received the gastric banding required follow-up surgery during the 2-year study period. 2 of the patients received injuries during adjustments to the band, while 6 suffered proximal gastric enlargement. That's a real concern, says adolescent health expert Associate Professor Jeff Walkley of RMIT University in Melbourne.
No mention of those figures or of any expert doubts in most of the media's coverage. In a 2.5-minute story, SBS News found no room for either adverse effects or adverse opinion. And the footage and interview with this grateful patient,
losing all the weight has made it possible to go skydiving,
was taken straight from the video news release provided by the PR company Viva Communications.
It's made it possible to do a whole bunch of things that I would have previously been able to do.
SBS News told MediaWatch,
that should have been supered as video news release, but unfortunately was not, due to a technical error.
The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, as well as the ABC Online, provided thorough and balanced reports. But for the most part, hard-pressed journos interviewed only people involved in the study and used the information in the media release.
But yeah, some amazing information there on the appropriateness of lap band surgery for children.
That's it for now. As always, more information on our website. Until next week,